secretary, and you can do better than that. And so we think you should take a college preparatory course. Even after I had failed the eighth grade, mind you.
Hmm. So
So
they said there were too many people going to be a secretary, so they told you to be something else.
yes, I could be what something else because I'd go to college and I could be something else. Yes.
So did you do that?
Oh yes, I went to college. Unbeknownst to me, I'll tell you how I went to college. When I graduated from high school, lo and behold, my mother and my father one Sunday, which they sometimes went off, they went off. When they came home, they said, "We have enrolled you in college." And I said, "What?" They didn't ask me. My mother didn't ask if you wanted to do anything. You just did what she said.
Oh
Okay.
my.
So anyhow, she said, "We've enrolled you in college and you're going to start school to go to the state teachers college."
Oh,
So
okay.
so there's where I went to college.
So they pretty much decided for you what
That
you were going to do.
exactly.
Oh my.
So they were that according to them I'm going to be a school teacher.
Oh dear. Okay. That
So
wouldn't fly these days.
well, yes, I would tell you. So I go to now. This is still off the record. I go to this state teachers college, Sky, and at this state teachers college, there's not just kids. I mean, young people. There are people that have been through school and going back and taking a refresher course. So I can't tell teachers from kids,
Oh
you
my.
know. And when I went, I didn't stay in the dorm, which is that all freshmen have to live in the dorm. Well, lo and behold, there wasn't any more room, so I roomed with some people, and I roomed with a girl that was a senior that lived with these people. So she and I had a room together at their house, and I would walk to the school every morning, walk down to the building to go to. I went down and had breakfast, with everybody and all my meals and everything else. But I roomed at these people's house, and the thing was that when on my way down there, I'm walking to school and I'm walking with this young woman, and she looks like she's my age or close to it. So I say to her, "Is this your first year?" And she says, "Yes." And I say, "Do you like it?" She said, "Oh, so far I do." And she said, "How about you?" I said, "Oh, yeah, but I haven't gotten very far." I said, "But it seems like it's really nice." So lo and behold, Sky, when I go to physical education, there she's the teacher.
Oh my.
So another morning I'm walking to school, and I'm walking to school with this man, and he's got a beard. So I think he's the teacher. So I'm talking to him about how long have you been here? And he said, "Oh," he said, "I just been here for this session." And I said, "Oh, are you going to stay on?" He said, "I'm not sure." So I take for granted he's a new teacher there. Well, lo and behold, he's a student.
I have a feeling it would be pretty much the same thing in this day and age too. It's kind of hard to tell who the teachers are and who the students are because people do go back to
Exactly.
college and to finish their
Right.
education, and then the young people, some of them are so smart they're done with high school by the time they're 15 and they're in college,
Uh-huh.
when they look like they should be in high school.
Uh-huh.
So it's still that way.
One thing nice though about it when I went to college was one day this young man came to me and he said to me, "I'm your sponsor." And I said, "Now what do you mean?" He said, "Well, if you need any help during the year," he said, "you come and look me up and I'm supposed to help you."
Huh? Did you ever do that?
Nope.
Oh. Okay.
And he was a football player, so he didn't have much time.
Right, right.
Anyway, I never bothered to look him up because I couldn't tell you that he could have helped me any at whatever I was doing. So I only went to school 2 years to teach school.
Oh, okay.
And the war it started, you know.
World War II?
Yes, they were, defense work started first.
Oh, okay.
And we weren't in the war, but we were starting defense work. And they came in, and one summer, when between, you know, school times, I went and got a job, and I told my mother, I can work and make money when you all have to pay for me to go to school. So I said, I'm going to stay and keep this job. So I kept the job, and December 7th, when the Japanese bombed Hawaii, you know,
Yes. Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor, right?
Yes.
Why, then the thing is, I was already working for this company, and they said, we're going to move from Wheeling to West Virginia, and that's downstate West Virginia. So they said, we're moving downstate West Virginia, and anybody that wants to keep their job can have their job, but they'll have to pay for their own way to go there, you know.
Yes.
But they can have their job.
Mm-hmm.
So I liked my job, so I said to my mother, I would like to stay with them. Now, I was so mothered, I take it that way, that when I was going to go down to Huntington to work, my mother drove me down there in the car, and she found me a place to stay with a lady that only had girl roomers.
Oh, okay.
So now there's where, like I said, I was so mothered, you know, as I'd call it. And so there's where I stayed. But in the meantime, you say, well, what about your sister?
Yeah, what happened to her?
Yes, exactly. What happened to her? Well, since that time that I was in the 8th grade and I had to repeat the 8th grade, she went on to high school. And that put her getting a year ahead of me. And when she graduated from high school, again, my mother lost her life. My mother got her a job at our department store. And the thing was, my sister, first of all, I have to go back to tell you, they had come out with this ironer, and I don't know whether it's like a commercial ironer or not, but it had a roller on it here, and you sat and you put your clothes in there and push the head.
Closed it, and it would like steam them, like, yeah. I think I know what you're talking about.
Anyway, my sister learned to operate. They had it at this department store, so my mother took my sister in there, and for her to learn to operate that ironer, well, she could do it so good and so wonderful that the people put her there so that she could demonstrate to everybody how to use this. But my sister was not a talker.
Oh.
She did not talk. She would do the things, but she wouldn't explain nothing, you know.
Ah.
You just had to watch how to do it. But she could do shirts, and she could do everything on that ironer. Well, consequently, the people decided that they would put her in their show window at night. You know how they had mannequins in windows?
Yes.
Okay. At night, she was in the window doing the ironing, so that people, and the stores all closed at 5 o'clock, you know, in our town.
Uh-huh.
And in those days, everything closed up at 5 o'clock. Everybody went home. And so my sister would sit in the store there and iron clothes, and people could go by and see her, and they would stop and watch her, you know, iron. And so she stayed on with the department store demonstrating that iron. Well, there was a young man that also had a job on the floor demonstrating Kirby vacuum cleaners.
Uh-huh.
And she had a boyfriend, and had this boyfriend all through high school, believe it or not. And he was really devoted to her. And so, but I would say, because he came every Sunday to see her, well, at home, you know, and because you didn't go any place in those days. Nobody had any money to date you, to go out.
Yeah, there was a war going on.
Well, this was in high school.
Oh, okay.
And so she went with him all through high school, and then she went to Stone and Thomas was the name of this department store. So she goes and works there, and she meets this young man that's working out on the floor with these vacuum cleaners and demonstrating them, and she just fell in love with him. He's blonde and he's handsome, and he's always dressed up every day in a suit and looks so nice. I could imagine, because Francis was handsome. He is blonde. He was very attractive. You know, you would think so when you'd see him. So, anyway, she just fell in love with him. Well, he asked her for a date, and the next thing you know, she was married to him.
Uh-huh.
So she married him before I graduated from high school.
Oh, okay.
So she left home. So she wasn't home. So there you go.
So your mother concentrated more on you then after that was over.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's so I was the only one. But my brothers were still had to go through school, you know, because they're behind me.
Right.
Three brothers.
Oh, okay.
Like I say, by the time that I was going to Huntington to work, now in defense, my oldest brother was getting to the age he's going to be drafted. So when he got his notice, he didn't even bother to try to get a job. He just went in the service. He went in the Air Force. And the next brother went in the Navy, and my younger brother was off. He got a scholarship to go to art school when he was a freshman in high school.
Wow.
And so he went off to Pittsburgh to a private art school.
Good for him.
And so he didn't live at home. So there were just those two boys, but they went in the service. And my brother one of them went in the Navy, and as I said, the oldest one went in the Air Force. And so the thing was, they weren't at home. So I'm the only one left at home. So like I said, I lived at home till I was 25 years old.
Wow, good for you.
Believe it or not.
Yeah.
But you know, I did work defense work until I have to tell you, I can't till about 44.
Oh.
Okay.
What did you do? Were you like a Rosie the Riveter, or?
Oh no, I told you I worked with eyepieces, you know, for binoculars and
okay.
and gun sights.
Oh, okay.
And I had to measure them, and I was like an inspector for them to see if they had scratches and rejects and put them in things like that. That's what I worked at. And I sat at a table, and the trays would come with these eyepieces in there, and you had to match them up. They consist of two parts, the eyepiece, believe it or not, and they have to be measured so that they're only a certain thickness, you know.
Oh, okay.
So I had to put them together like that. Anyway, that was my job. I liked my job, like I said. But you know, I told you I liked routine.
That's right. Do you remember how much you were paid?
No, but it was a lot better than any job I'd ever had before.
Oh, okay.
Tell you before. I had worked between at school times, summer. I did have a job at a deli.
Okay.
And I went to work at a deli only because when they had an ad in the paper, I went to answer the ad, and the man that had a big farm, and he had owned two different delis, one in town and one in the suburbs. So the thing is, when I went here, he says, "Oh, I know your dad." So that's how come I got a job there.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know how to do anything because I'd never worked before, you know.
Right. Well, everybody has to start somewhere.
Exactly, but I thought that was good. At least I got a job, and I got a job, and I learned how to you know, measure out slices of meat and people, and they did everything there.
Right.
They even had they served meals. They had a lady that was a cook, And she came down and she came and made the meal and put it in the in a, I don't know what you call it. Anyway, it was there. It was warm all the time.
Right.
And somebody come in and want a meal, then you dish up the meal and serve it to
Right,
them.
right. They kept it on a warmer.
Yes.
Right, right.
So, but she didn't stay. She left. So it was left there. So any dishes or anything they did or any serving, you had to do it.
Right.
And I learned there. I used to have to. There was a garage across the way, and they used to come over to have breakfast, and they'd want to have an egg and toast, and I had to make that for them for breakfast.
Oh.
And I had to learn to do all these kind of things.
Well, I can imagine throughout your life that you've had many, many jobs that you've learned.
Well, I had that kind of a job, but now back to 44. I worked at this in Huntington, and I'm in Huntington working, and I get this letter from my mother, and she said, "I need you at home." And she said to me, so he said, "Come home." Okay. When my mother gives you an order, you do it.
Wow, and how old were you then?
Oh,
You were about 25 or so, weren't you?
yeah, it was getting close to that.
Right.
I wasn't 25 yet, though.
Ah.
Anyway, because this is like 44.
Okay.
And so now I go home, but I find out when I get home, it's because my brother Malcolm, who was in the Navy, my mother had gotten a notice that he was missing in action.
Oh, dear.
So, and in the meantime, but I don't know all this, but when I get home, he is in the hospital in New York City. So he's in Rockefeller Institute Hospital, and they don't know what his problem is. So this is a hospital where they try to find out what ails him, and he's in isolation.
Oh.
So now my mother wants to go see him, but she does not want to go by herself. So my reason that I had to come home, she needed me, was because now I have to go with her to New York to visit my brother.
Oh my goodness! So you quit your job and everything that you did to run home, just
went home.
Aren't you something?
So I go home and we go to New York and we go to visit him, and like I said, he's in isolation. Well, they make us put on gowns and cover our hair and put on face masks, and now we can go in to see him, and we go in his room to see him and visit with him, because they thought that would help him to maybe get better, to see some of the family.
Right.
So anyhow, we go in to visit with him, and but they don't know for sure what his problem is, and they don't know whether he has malaria or what. But anyway, so we stayed in New York for about 3 or 4 days, and went every day to see him. Now, my mother had never been in New York before, so I'm amazed at how well she found out how to get along. We went on the subway,
Oh my.
and I really am amazed. She really did super. And we go out to visit him, and we had to get off the subway before we got to the hospital and walk about 2 blocks, or so, to the hospital. But anyway, so the very last day we were there, they said, maybe we've taken him out of isolation now, and maybe it would be good for him to go out, and you all could go out, maybe to lunch or something if you want to. So he got dressed, and he goes with us out to have lunch and back, and then back to the hospital again. Can't stay out very long, but at least they thought he was able to do that.
Oh, that's good, yes.
So anyway, then he goes out. Well, the thing is, then I go back, now I've got to get a job again,
Oh my.
of some kind. So now I have to find myself another job. But I didn't go back to my job in Huntington, because that meant I had to get on the train and go down to Huntington. So I looked for a job in Wheeling, where we lived, and I found a job. So I went to work again. A lot less pay, I got to tell you, And another, a brand new thing that I didn't even know how to do, I had to learn. This is doing reprints, for film. You
Yes.
have a roll of film.
Yes.
Okay. This is the work to do those. Now I had to learn how to develop those rolls of film and how to print them and how to decide whether they needed a longer, and it was all hand done.
Yes.
Not automatic.
Right.
So you'd hold up the negatives, and look at them and whether they're dense or light, or because it depends on the light the people had when they took these pictures. And then now you reached up here and they were all in the dark doing this. And you reach up here and you take the grade of paper you want to have little pockets. And then, okay, this is good for this one because it's dense. Okay, now you put down the paper, you put down the film, and then you take your machine and you put it down and you say 1001. You're doing it for as many seconds as you think it needs. Okay, 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. That ought to be enough. Okay, you lift it up. Now, you printed that.
Ah, okay.
But you had to, every one of those were done hand.
Wow.
Everybody's roll of film was done. So
Yes, yes.
Nothing got done real quick.
Right, right. I had a dark room when I was younger and
you
had to mark the chemicals and put them in little trays and do the same thing and have to look up through the
right.
negatives
Well, then
and everything.
you know
and
what
print them. Mm-hmm.
You know what it was like.
I do, just kind of briefly.
Yes.
And then I worked for Photomat way back in the day, which we didn't do any developing or anything. All I did was sit in a little booth and give them their pictures when they were already done. But at that time, I did have my own dark room and did my own and had a developer and everything at that time when I was young.
Well, these rolls of film you put on this rack, pinned them up there. Now you dip them down in this tank so that the roll of film gets developed,
Right.
So, oh dear.
Boy, that's the old-fashioned way now. It's just a click and print.
Yeah. And
things have really changed.
Right. And during that time, somebody in taking these in had made a mistake and didn't mark the color film because we didn't do color film. It had to be sent back to where the color film was made. For them to do it, because we didn't have equipment to do that. So anyhow, somebody hadn't marked the envelope properly, and we did somebody's color film.
Uh-oh.
So I don't know what they did about that.
Well.
So anyhow, that they had to settle that with the people. I don't know, because somebody made a mistake. That was made before we got a hold of the film.
Now, you've seen a lot of technology come through your lifetime.
Yeah, and then they also, the same place that did the reprints, had a photographic studio. By that I mean people came in and had their
photos taken?
Yes. And it was strictly, you made an appointment and you came in and came to make it. It wasn't just commercial like.
Right.
Anyway, it was individual. And so I learned to do that, and I learned that, how to pose the people so that they would look at their best and things like that, and then to take their picture. And also their pictures didn't come colored, so I learned how to tint pictures,
Oh, okay.
So
my mother used to do that when she was young, too. She tinted photographs.
That's what I did, too, so I did that, and I learned all that while I was there.
Wow, that's a lot, though, Ginger. I mean, how to pose people, being a photographer and developer.
Yep.
That's quite a skill.
Well, that's what I learned at that job. Well, then I left that job, like I told you, because the man that owned the company came and said he was going to have to let that one girl go, and he was. If he'd only raised our pay $1 or $2 a week, I would have stayed. But
yeah.
No, he wasn't going to change our pay one bit, but we were going to have more work to do, because now after we had printed those pictures, we had to develop those and, put them on the dryer
Right.
and everything else. So anyhow,
Well, that's one thing that hasn't changed any.
so the thing was that when he said that, when I said I had to look for another job. Well, luckily I went to work then for a studio that's all they did was take photographs of babies and people, you know. And
Well, you had the skills by that time.
yes, I could do that. And so I went to work for this young lady. Then this company was the owner was out of Pittsburgh. And but I worked for this young lady. She was married, and I worked for her, and did pictures. My hardest thing was baby pictures.
Ah.
To get babies to smile. I used to get cramps in my face smiling to try to get those babies to smile.
Well, I had squeakers and stuffed toys and you name it, boy. I mean, I just about jumped on my head and anything else, so I can relate to that too.
Yeah,
Yep.
like I said, I thought babies were the hardest.
Well, to me, animals are the hardest. The babies, I pretty much have the babies down now, but it's the animals to sit still to get to do.
Nobody came with animals in those days.
That's the difference now, too, because in this era, people's animals are their babies, and they want pictures with them and without them. And,
oh, yeah.
You know, so that was a little difficult.
Uh-huh.
You know, those are the only ones I'd really have a hard time with.
And in those days, when you were doing people's photograph like that, you had a light meter.
Right.
Okay, now you had to go up and you had to put the light meter close
Yep.
to them and
Yes.
read your light meter here and here all around to see, what how the light was,
Right.
because you're going to take their picture, but you
Right.
have to have your camera set. So now you have to set your camera according to your light meter, and oh Lord.
You're a trailblazer. It was a lot of work back then.
Yes, it was.
Yes,
It wasn't
yes.
just click, click.
Yeah, and now, well, you know, there's still a little more skill to it than just that, but
Uh-huh.
but it is much easier nowadays.
Yeah. Anyway, though, now I worked at that, and there I was working at that, and the studio was in the arcade in Wheeling. Okay, so here I am. I'm there at work one morning, and my Skippy, she's my boss. She says to me, "Oh, here comes that fella. He was in here yesterday." She said, "Oh, I'm going to go have a cup of coffee. You can talk to him." So, okay. So, and Skippy was married, so she wasn't interested in anybody anyway. So, anyway, she goes to have coffee. So here comes my husband, which I don't know this. He's going to be my husband. I don't know that. Anyway, he comes in, and he comes up, and he's talking to me, and because it was a glass front. You could walk in, real easy, and we had a counter there. And he walks in, and he's standing at the counter talking to me. And I said, I figure he's familiar since she knows him. He must have had his picture made, I think. So, but I don't ask him. And he's got these pictures. He's got pictures under his arm. And I say to him, "What do you have there?" He said, "Oh, these are pictures of my girlfriends." So sure enough, he's got these photographs of 3 girls, not together, each one individually. And he tells me they're his girlfriends. So I said, and then I don't know, we talked, and I said to him, "You're nothing but a big smart aleck." I tell him.
Oh my!
That's
really?
That's what I told him he was. And so my boss comes back, and she says to me, "You can go have coffee now if you want." So I said, "Okay." I said to him, "I'm going to go have coffee." He says, "Oh, I'll go with you." Okay. Now I go, still in the arcade, but I go up to where they're beyond and around the corner where there's a lunch counter, and I order coffee, and he has coffee too. Well, once he looks at his watch, and he says to me, "Oh, I've got to go. I got to catch the train or something." I think the train's what he said. Anyway, so he jumps up, and he said, first before he jumped to leave, he said to me, "Would you write to me?" So I thought it was my patriotic duty to write to all servicemen that ask you, you know.
Yes, yes.
You don't ask them. If they ask you, okay.
Okay.
So he asked me, so I said, okay. So he quick gives me his APO number, you know, and stuff. And I say, all right, and write your name down. So he does. So he does all that. So now he goes off, and here he forgot to pay for his coffee. So now I pay for his coffee
Oh,
and
no.
mine. And I think, oh, well, I probably will never see him again. It's okay. Because a lot of servicemen came out, would come in and they'd say, I'll see you after work. But they were never there.
Right.
So the thing, because at night the arcade door shut. And anybody in the arcade could get out, but they couldn't, new people couldn't get back in when it was closing time.
Right.
So if they're going to meet you, they have to meet you there at that door. So anyhow, the thing was that I didn't see him, but I wrote to him. He was away for 3 months, and I did write to him, told him that I don't know what all, but anyhow, he comes back, and when he comes back, he comes in and he said, I'll meet you after work. So okay, now I get out of work, and sure enough, he's there. So we walked down the street together, and he said to me, now mind you, I didn't know him. He said, you're going to marry me. And I said, you're crazy, I don't even know you. Which I didn't.
Right.
And didn't know nothing about him. Anyway, we're walking down the street, and we go down and go to some little restaurant there, little hole in the wall place, and have a cup of coffee. And I said to him, I've got to go home. So he walks me to my bus stop, and I go home. Well, the next day I go to work, and he comes back to work, and he comes in and he says to me, I made arrangements for us to get married. And I said, what?
Oh.
He said, I made arrangements at the church for us to get married.
And what did you think about that?
Well, I don't know. Anyway, I think he's my mother, and he's telling me what to do, because I'm so used to my mother telling me, you're going to do this, you know.
Right.
So anyhow, so then the thing is that I say to him, he said, we're getting married, I think it was like, I really don't remember what day it was. It was still that same week, you know. So anyway, I tell my boss that I'm going to get married, and her husband was there, Skippy's husband, and he said to me, you don't even know that fella. I said, yes, but I'm going to get married. So at lunchtime he came, was because he's going to go to lunch with me, and at lunchtime when William came, why, I said to him, but I don't have a dress. I'm not going to get married in a green dress. And because I thought that was the worst color, because my grandmother had this little poem, she said, and maybe you know it too. Anyway, in the poem it said, married in red, wish yourself dead. Married in black, wish yourself back. Married in green, wish yourself never seen. Did you ever hear that?
No, I haven't.
Well, anyway, my grandmother used to repeat that. So I sure didn't want to have on a green dress.
Right.
So I thought, well, the only thing to wear is white. Oh, and if you're married in white, you quarrel and fight.
Oh, my.
So anyhow, I said, well, I don't want to be in that. But if you're married in blue, always be true.
Ah.
So anyway, when we went, I went and picked out a pale blue dress.
Uh-huh.
And so after work, I talked my boss and her husband into going with us to the church just to be our representatives.
Right.
So anyway, we go after work, which, like I tell you, the store's all closed. So after work this one day, I didn't tell my mother. No.
I was going to ask you about that.
No, I didn't say one word to her, because, you know, you're never for sure if these things are going to really come true, because, like I said, when those fellows came in from the service, they told you a lot of big lies, so you didn't believe nothing. So anyway, though, I've gone that far,
Okay.
and so anyway, they're going to be with us, my boss and her husband. So they went with us to the day we're going to get married, and stood up with us at church. So at church that night, there was only them and us and the custodian,
Oh my.
and of course the priest to the church, Reverend Carroll. And so the thing is that we got married, and then I. But before that, William had said to me, "Don't you want me to go home with you and you to introduce me to your parents?" And I said, "No,"
Oh.
because my parents were so against people with foreign names.
Oh.
And my married name is Faldowski.
Ah.
Okay, so I sure wasn't going to introduce him to them because I knew they wouldn't like that. They would find fault. So that's how come I never took him home. Okay, now I've married him. So now I take him home. I say to him, now we'll go home and we'll meet my parents. So we go home, and by the time we'd gotten married and I had dinner and had gotten married and things, why, we went out to my house. We have to ride the bus, of course, you know.
Okay.
So we ride the bus and go out to where I live and go in. And my mother, she's already in bed.
Uh-oh.
But my mother, if I told you, my mother's really used to me coming and knocking on her door after she's in bed. Because when I was in high school and went to dances, my sister and I, before my sister got married, every time we went to dances, as soon as I got home, I used to go up and knock on the door and say, "Can I come in and talk to you?" Yes, my mother would say, now, because she probably didn't go to sleep till I got home anyway. So, because our rule was you had to be home by 12 o'clock.
Right.
Okay. So anyhow, now I go in and I tell her about the dance. I tell her about what everybody wore and everything else. You know, but she's probably fallen asleep. But I have to tell her all this stuff. In the meantime, my sister's getting ready for bed, you know. So anyhow, so she was used to me doing that. So I bring him home and I knock on the door. I ask her if I can come in. Yes, she says. So I come in and I said, I have somebody with me. And I say, this is Bill Faldowski. And I said, he and I were married tonight. Oh, you didn't marry a hunky.
Okay then. Those were her first words?
That was my mother's first words.
Oh my.
And William said to her, "Oh, you don't look like an American to me."
Oh, that started off a lovely relationship, I can imagine.
Oh yes, oh yes. But anyway, so anyhow, I tell her that we're married. She said to me, "Well, you can stay in your room for tonight if you like." And I said, "No, we're going to go back to the hotel because we're leaving for Jacksonville in the first thing in the morning," which that's what we had made up to do, you know. So anyhow, now my father comes home because he's working defense work, and he comes home because he's on the shift there, and he just got home. So he got home, and now we go downstairs, and I introduce my William to my father, and my father shakes hands with him, and all my father said to him was, "Well, just be good to her and take good care of her."
Wow. Okay.
So see, my father has an entirely different attitude.
Yes.
So anyhow, now we have to hurry up and leave because we have to catch the last bus to town because there won't be any more.
Right, right.
So now we leave and we go and we catch the last bus and we stay at the hotel in town, and the next morning we get up and we leave to go for Jacksonville. Well, the river, the Wheeling Island is right in the middle of the Ohio River, but we didn't live on the island. But anyway, the river was coming up, so, so we get started. We're going on the bus, believe it or not, and we get on the bus and we start down the river on the bus. Well, we have to go through high water in places, and somehow the bus got water in the engine in the back and stalled out.
Oh my.
Well, the bus driver can't get it started again, So he tries for a little bit, and he says, well, there's a gasoline station down the road here. I know. He says, I'll walk down there and get help. So a couple of the people got off the bus and walked with him, some of the people. I don't know how many. But William and I didn't care. We just stayed on the bus. Well, a couple of the fellows got off the bus and went around to see if they could get the bus started. Well, of course, as soon as the bus dried out a little bit, from going through that water, they were able to get it started. So now one of them drove the bus down and picked up the bus driver and the people, and we went on. So I got to tell you, that was an experience. So we stayed on the bus till we got to Winston-Salem, in North Carolina. So by then we were tired of the bus, so we got off the bus and went and got a room at the hotel. And we stayed at the hotel. Next morning is Sunday morning. Now we get up and we go out. I want to go to the drugstore. I want to get some shampoo. I want to wash my hair, of all things. So don't ask me why, but I did. So anyhow, we go to there wasn't anything open. We come back and we say to the desk, when do things open here? Because we think they ought to be open. Oh, this is Sunday. We have blue laws. Nothing opens on Sunday.
That's true. Yes, and that went all the way through the 80s up down south when I was there.
That's right.
On Sunday, I mean, you could throw a rock and nobody'd know.
That's right. Exactly. Wasn't anybody on the streets?
No,
Nothing.
it was a blue law, so they weren't allowed to sell anything, let alone liquor or anything else.
Nope.
Right. Nope.
Not
Everybody was either in church or getting ready for church or coming home from church.
That's right. That's the only thing. You got it.
That was it.
So, of course, we stayed there for the night and things. The next day we got back on the bus and continued on to Florida. Yeah, so I thought that.
What an exciting marriage. I mean, oh, holy cow.
But I have to tell you, told my husband many times, I said, I married you because I thought you were my mother and telling me what to do. And I said, how could you and my mother be so much alike?
Oh, dear. And how long were you married?
42 years.
So that young man coming up and telling you were going to be married.
Yep.
And 42 years later. Wow,
Yep.
And you said he passed away just before your anniversary.
11 days before our anniversary.
Right.
We would have been married 42 years, yeah.
Oh, well, you were married 42 years. It's just he fell short a couple of days. You were still married that
yes,
long.
Right.
Oh, that's a wonderful story, Ginger.
But oh my goodness, how crazy.
Yes. I would not have thought of you as being that impulsive. I thought I was impulsive.
well, that was simply because William's telling me what to do, and from then on, he ran everything and told me what to do.
I see. Okay, so it was kind of a perfect match. You went from Mom telling you what to do to hubby telling you what to do.
That's exactly. Don says I was made for him.
Well, probably were, and he recognized it, and apparently you did too. So what a wonderful journey you've had. And see, these are the stories I like to capture, because that's really a cute story.
Yeah, that's a story in itself.
Yes, it is. I mean, just in this, it's been 43 minutes that it's taken for you to tell these stories. And in that time, we've gone from birth to World War II, to getting married and having children. So
right.
I think that's fabulous, and I want to continue to talk to you about your life and what you've done.
Yeah,
because I've taken care of you a few times, and every time we get together, you tell these fabulous stories. I just want to capture a few of them.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, I took up golf after Dawn was about 3, okay? But it wasn't my idea to take up golf. My husband said to me, why don't you take up and play golf? I said, oh, I never thought about it. He said, okay, come on, we'll go buy some golf clubs. So like you say, we go to Sears, and pick out some golf clubs. Don't know anything. I don't know anything about golf. He doesn't either. So we pick out according to the way the person in that department said, we need a driver and a putter and a 7-iron. That'll get me through being a beginner, he says. Okay. So now I go to the golf course. Well, you can't play golf till you learn what you're doing. So now I get with a pro and I take golf lessons and I learn how to play. And I'd seen people so I could swing the golf club, but I took lessons and learned to play and how to putt and things like that, and how to get your ball out of the sand trap and these different things. Okay, now I play golf, and believe it or not, I even entered a tournament with another fella. I didn't ever know him, but they were having a tournament, and I entered the tournament, but you had to have a partner, and I didn't have a partner, and this person, he didn't have a partner, so they matched us up together, and I never saw him before, and he never saw me. So, boy, he's taking a big chance because he doesn't know if I know how to play or not.
Right.
But believe it or not, he was a really good player.
Ah,
And
good.
Believe it or not, we ended up winning the trophy.
Good for you, Ginger.
So there you go.
So there you go.
So